Seinfeld episode when they're in the soup line? Have you seen this episode? I believe it's the Soup Nazi episode.
Oh yeah, definitely seen the Soup Nazi.
It's one of the top.
It's been
episodes.
a long time.
That's kind of what I feel like. George makes he makes a quote and he says something like, "I'm shifting into soup mode," and I feel like when I start these podcasts, that's what's going through my head. You know, I'm shifting into podcast mode.
Shifting into podcast mode, huh? I just try and always be like the same temperament all the time, Zach. That way I don't have to shift modes too much.
Oh no, I'm definitely shifting modes. But Gabe, it's another week, another podcast. Did you do anything fun this weekend?
Got my hair cut, which was...
I noticed. I was waiting for someone to say something.
Yeah, you know, I felt like that needed to happen after seeing myself on video last week for our video podcast. I kind of went, my goodness, I really need to get that cleaned up. So, you know, looking a little, hopefully, you know, at least more put together this time around versus last time around. So that was my big excitement for the weekend.
It's funny you say that because having a remote job and as much time as I spend on Zoom, you know, there's definitely days where I get on my meetings, I'm looking at myself, I'm like, dang, it's been 3 months since I've got a haircut, you know, and kind of reminds you to schedule that.
Yeah, I was telling my wife at the beginning of the pandemic when things were really crazy, that's when I knew I really needed to have, like, I got to the point where I just said, can you please cut my hair? Like, I don't care what it looks like. I just need this to get trimmed because my hair was like curling up behind my ears. And that's when I knew it was really bad, really, really time to do something about it.
What you need, Gabe, is they have
I couldn't stand looking at it anymore.
And I don't know what this product is called, so I'm not going to plug this. I know that's what I do best on the podcast is plugging products, but there was an attachment, and I don't know if it like goes onto your vacuum if it comes like this, but like it's some kind of clipper that like attaches to your vacuum, and you basically just like run it through your hair. You can give yourself a haircut. So if you ever want to like try that again, or if you have a pandemic again, try it.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully no more pandemics, but the Flowbee is what that is called.
I think, yeah, that is it.
It was a big product back in the day. You were probably too young to remember the Flowbee, but I had heard something, and I don't know where I heard this, but I've heard that George Clooney cuts his hair with the Flowbee himself. And I mean, it's just a good looking dude, right? So, you know, I think we can all agree on that. So if, you know, it's good enough for Clooney, I suppose it could be good enough for me.
It's funny. I saw that on TikTok and immediately I was like, that's a funny joke. You know, like that's not a real thing. And no, it's an actual thing.
Supposedly. I don't know if it feels definitely like an urban legend, but I don't know. Maybe it is true. Who knows?
Oh man. Well, Gabe, new episode, new topic. What's on the table today?
Yeah. So today we are going to be talking, I've been weirdly obsessed with these direct to consumer or DTC brands lately. And what I felt like it would be really interesting to kind of do a topic or do a podcast around this specific topic. I think there's so many things that these direct to consumer brands do really well, specifically around their website, their landing pages. And I thought there could be some fun things that we could talk about there. I did want to mention as we're getting into this as well, I mentioned the video, you know, so you can see my haircut. We are also going to be uploading all of these episodes to YouTube. So if you do want to see Zach or I, you can watch the podcast on Spotify, or you can check it out on YouTube. We're going to be uploading the podcast there as well. So multiple places to get all of your...
So not only can they like, favorite, and subscribe on YouTube, but they can also follow us on their favorite podcast app now.
There you go. Absolutely.
I've always wanted to say that. Like, favorite, subscribe.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I always feel like such a nerd saying that on my LinkedIn videos, but yes, this is the point where we're at. So circling back to the topic, we wanted to kind of talk about these DTC brands. And like I said, I think there's a lot of things that they do really well from a marketing perspective because they have a very short time to get your attention because oftentimes it's something that maybe you've heard advertised on a podcast, or maybe you've seen, you know, an advertisement online or something like that. And so they've really got a short amount of time to get you interested in their solution. And when we're talking about direct to consumer, what we're really talking about here is just, these are companies who've kind of cut out the middle person, right? There's no middle person between them and their customer. So there's no retail outlet. There's nothing like that, which is again, why they have to be really good at marketing, because that's the only way that they're going to survive is by, you know, doing that successfully. And Zach, I know you had, as we were kind of doing some prep for this, you were talking about some examples that you've seen, or, you know, even companies that you've engaged with Could you maybe share a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's quite a few on that list. And, you mentioned, prepping for the podcast. And I shaved today. And every time I shave, I always think back to the Dollar Shave Club. And I don't even use them anymore. But, like, that's kind of the way people got razors for a while and still do. They had some fantastic advertising. And, having everything shipped directly to your house. I didn't need to go out to the grocery store. I didn't need to go to Amazon, wherever we went. The other one, too, that I've used, Gabe, is Quip. And this is one I used that one for quite a while. And what it is, it's, toothbrush, toothpaste, everything like that. I think they do like mouthwash now. The toothbrush is actually Bluetooth. So it's connects to your phone, and, who doesn't want that kind of connection in their life? But that's the one I'm most familiar with. And the reason I signed up for that was, sure enough, one of my friends came up to me and said, "Hey, I found this cool new company. I've got my referral code if you want to try it out." And sure enough, I was like, "Yeah, I want to try that out. I'll try it out." So I used his code. I got, $5 off or whatever it was at the time. And the sign up process was super easy. I see that a lot with these. It's always coming from friends. Someone said something about this company, and now I can come back and use their code to sign up too. And that was the two I have examples from. And both of them, fantastic experience. I actually thought about going back to Quip because when I used them, they didn't have the Bluetooth toothbrush, but now they do. And now I'm like, I kind of want something like that. But those are the two I've used, Gabe. What have you seen?
Well, I wanted to close off on something that you said there around both Dollar Shave Club and Quip. It's interesting that both of those are kind of like personal care products, and I feel like a lot of these DTC companies that have come out are trying to disrupt industries that have been the same forever. Gillette is just like, that's what my dad used. That's what I use. That's maybe what my son is going to use when he starts shaving. I mean, these companies have been around forever, and they really haven't changed their business model in forever as well. Same thing with toothbrushes. I mean, with the exception of Sonicare, a number of years back, that was really like the most exciting thing that had happened in toothbrushes in quite some time. So I think it's interesting that they're trying to kind of bring technology, something, as you said, the Bluetooth connection for the toothbrush. I'm a little dubious as to why you need that or why that would be interesting, but whatever. To each their own.
And I think there's a convenience component too to this, Gabe, too, because that's probably like the things, you probably run out of most. And being able to have, a reminder to like, oh, your next box is shipping soon. Here's 3 months of toothpaste. And with Quip specifically, you also get the new toothbrush heads, which I feel like a lot of people just use the same toothbrush until like it just falls apart completely. But they actually send you this, so you don't have to go out and think, oh, I forgot to buy this. I have it in stock. It comes in the mail. At the time, I feel like I should mention this, though. At the time with Quip, I don't know if they still do this because I feel like it was pretty unsustainable, but they came in like these metallic bags. And, throwing toothpaste and mouthwash and all this stuff in the bag, you would open this bag and like the mint smell would just like overwhelm you. It was quite the unboxing experience. You knew when Quip was the Quip box came in because you could smell the mint.
That's hilarious. It's kind of genius, right? It's, getting into that whole, all of your senses to excite you about this particular product. I mean, yeah, that's pretty smart, actually. It's interesting you say that about the subscription model too. So a lot of these companies moved businesses into subscription models that, again, never existed before. Like, you would have never thought about a subscription model for your toothbrush, but then, Quip comes out, or Dollar Shave comes out for, same kind of thing, right? The subscription model for razors. And over time, Gillette, I think, has realized, oh crap, we probably should be doing this too. And now they have a monthly service that you can subscribe to as well. But it's creating these recurring revenue business models that never existed before. And, going back to some previous episodes like our last episode, we were talking about Netflix and churn specifically. Having all of this knowledge about your customers in this recurring revenue model is so important to be able to continue to improve that customer experience. But one in particular that I want to talk about that I've certainly used is Untuck It. So that was one that I heard about on a podcast, and it was whatever, get a 30% discount on your first order or whatever. So all right, I'll check this out, and bought the shirts. And I'm like, man, these are nice shirts. And so now I've gone back and purchased them a few more times. But that to me is a perfect example of a direct to consumer brand that I never would have heard of previously. I think they actually do have a few stores in some locations as well. Nothing really anywhere close to me, but I'm able to just order stuff. It shows up at my door, and if I don't like it, I send it back. And I've definitely always had a good experience with their stuff. And that was one that absolutely heard of on a podcast, looked it up, had a discount code, and ordered it. And I've definitely spent money with them that I never would have had I not, had it not been for this DTC model.
And Gabe, I want to point something out, because as we planned this podcast, we kind of made a list of DTC companies, and some we've done business with, some we haven't. And as I look at this list, I can 100% that every single one of these companies that I have signed up for, that I've used, it's because someone told me to, a friend told me to, they had their code. Every single one of these, I know we wanted to talk about Blue Apron, HelloFresh, that kind of thing. The same thing. I've used someone else's code. I got 3 meals free. But every single one of these companies is because someone communicated the whole, hey, you should sign up. Here's the benefit. Here's a discount code, but every single one of these.
Well, I think that speaks to the power of social proof, advocacy, advertising, those sorts of things, right? That's a very inexpensive way for these customers to acquire, or for these companies to acquire new customers. That cost of acquisition is incredibly low. And some of these, if they get into a subscription model and they're able to keep you for a year, 2 years, something like that, that cost of acquisition of giving you a month free or whatever, it's that payback is so short, right? Like, they're making money hand over fist after that. And I think that's something that, bringing this back to our industry, Zach, of, broadband service providers, I think a lot of folks could do in that, could leverage that type of marketing, where they're using their existing customers to give referrals, to talk about how great the service is, and maybe give a benefit to the subscriber, give a bill credit to the subscriber, and also give a discount to the new customer. Even that cost of acquisition is going to be much, much less than you having to paper bomb a particular neighborhood with a bunch of direct mail postcards or something like that in order to get people actually signed up.
Absolutely. And going back to Quip, there's a couple examples I want to use, because I went back to their website today, and I've since canceled Quip, so I don't actually use it still. But I went back to their website and I logged in, and immediately I was given the pop-up that said, 20% off, enter your email, and we'll give you 20% off your next purchase. And I thought, oh man, like, that's 20% off. And I didn't fall for that one just because I'm already a customer. I didn't really need to sign up for anything. But after I noticed that, when I logged in, I noticed that's when they had the rewards program. So you can get points for brushing. Again, it's a Bluetooth toothbrush, so they know if you're brushing, or you can totally fake it.
I guess that's why you need the technology.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, total side note, but I believe it's the Sonicare one actually has like a 3D model. So when you brush, it shows you where you're brushing, or like where you spend the most time. So there's actually data behind that. That's right up my alley. Like, I would definitely, want that app. Some people may not, like, that might be too invasive, but it's a lot of fun. But back to Quip.
Man, I feel like that's a bridge too far for me, buddy. But that is interesting.
I'll test it out.
I want to go back to the comment that you made. Yeah, definitely. Let me know how that one goes. I want to go back to a comment you made about the pop-up. That is something that I saw consistently when I was looking at these different DTC brands. You go to any of their websites, the first thing that pops up is a pop-up that basically covers the entire screen, or most of the screen, that says, give us your email address and we're going to give you a significant discount on your first order. And again, from a cost of acquisition perspective, that's very cheap, right? All they're doing is gathering your email address, and then they can, start to market to you, with that information, and offer you a nice discount for giving it to them. That's something I think other businesses could really take advantage of as well, and should look to, start to roll out for new visitors to the website, for people who aren't signed up, offer that discount, especially if they're willing to give you some sort of, email address so you can communicate with them. I feel like that feels like such a no-brainer. And like I said, it's on every single DTC website you go to. I don't think I visited one that didn't have that pop-up.
And Gabe, one thing about those pop-ups is, I think there's so many different use cases, whether it's a landing page, a splash page. I'm hesitant to call it a pop-up just because I feel like a pop-up page has such a bad,
Yeah, it's probably not the right
vibe
term,
to
but
it.
yeah.
But we talk a lot about in our day-to-day jobs, driving app adoption, promoting the app, So I look at people who have an app and think, how are they promoting that on their website? And I think these landing pages, these splash pages, it's the exact same thing. Maybe instead of putting that email address in, you've got a link to the app that pops up. I've seen promotions around the app too, download the app and, you'd be entered to win so and so. But I think there's so many use cases for using those splash screens on your website. It doesn't have to be a sign up for a discount code. It doesn't have to be download the app. You can really tailor that messaging to whatever outcome you want.
Absolutely. I mean, it could just be notifying customers of a new service that you've launched or something. And splash screens is a much better way to describe it. Pop-ups feels, I don't know. There's such a negative.
When I think of pop-ups,
so.
I think of like Windows. Not to hate on Microsoft, but I think of like Microsoft. What was the old browser they had? Not Edge, but they had another one. And that's all I can think of. Yes, that's the one.
God, it's so sad to me that you don't even remember Internet Explorer.
I
just feel like
part of that reason, Gabe, though, is I grew up in a Mac household, so we didn't actually have a PC. I did build a gaming PC last year, so that was my kind of COVID, hobby. But when I think of pop-ups, like I think of like this old like spam pop-up tab. So I think just drawing the line between, not a pop-up tab that people are going to get annoyed by, but you're already on the website. This little window comes up on the existing website, so that UI is really nice. But I think there's tremendous opportunity. And the nice thing is too,
absolutely.
Gabe, we work with a lot of different websites in tools, and a lot of these websites, you can put that HTML code right into your website and then kind of build the landing page, splash screen, whatever you want to call it, on the tools you're using. I know we talk a lot about Branch, and Branch does exactly this with app downloads, where a little pop-up comes on your screen. And the nice thing is you don't need that web experience. You don't need to know how to code this into your website. It's a single line of code. You don't have to know how to do like the CSS, the style sheets and anything. It's super easy to implement.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's so many great tools like that out there that can make this easy for folks. And circling back to your landing page comment, that's one of the other things that we noticed when we were looking through all of these DTC websites is, man, their landing pages are good. They're so good because they've got such little time to get you excited about the product or service. They've really got to hit you over the head with that value prop right up at the top, right? Really strong imagery, a very strong, value prop, and very clear to what it is that they want to do. Going back to the untucked example, shirts made to be worn untucked. Cool. I know exactly what that is in, 3 seconds of reading that, right? The Quip one, I was looking at that one, better oral care made simple. Wow. Okay, cool. That's so like short and just specific. And that's one thing that I think these DTC brands do a really good job of, is having that clear value prop, really direct in the top part of the website. So it's incenting you to scroll down a little bit further and actually learn a bit more about their product or service.
Absolutely. And I think you touched on that fantastically, Gabe. The one thing I just want to point out is you don't need, fancy graphics, fancy images with these. All of these landing pages, like I'm thinking of that Quip one I sent you. It was, a background color, a text box that said whatever the call to action was, and it said, get 20% off, and a box to put their email address in. It was that simple. It was 3 elements, the pop-up box, the text, and that email address box. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You don't need to spend a ton of time, designing this or developing this. Put that time into the copy, the call to action, and what you want the consumer to see out of that box, and run with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I know as marketers, sometimes we get so precious with our copy and, wanting, all of the words, and it's really hard to edit ourselves sometimes, but, with these types of landing pages, especially, you've got to be so tight with that copy, because again, you're trying to get the value prop of your solution across in such a short period of time. The other thing that I think these companies do really well is social proof, and feeding reviews and feedback that they're getting from their customers back into those landing pages as well. I think it's even more important for these DTC brands than it is probably for traditional brands to have that social proof, because most of the time you're asking your customer to do something different than what they've done before. And I think a really good example of this is Casper mattress. So that was one that, has grown considerably over the last few years. And it used to be that if you wanted to buy a mattress, you would go to a mattress store, or you would go to a department store and you would lay on a mattress that a bunch of other people have laid on, which sounds,
Gabe, I gotta cut in here
COVID
because
sounds so creepy and weird.
if I'm being honest, Gabe, I didn't know that like testing mattresses was a thing until like 20 minutes ago when you mentioned that. Like I always thought like, oh, you visit the website or like you see the catalog, however you buy your mattress, and like buy it and receive it. I didn't realize like people actually went out and I don't know.
No,
like,
that's a thing that I've done in my life. I remember when my wife and I when we bought our first house and we were buying like an actual, real person bed, and like going to the department store and laying on different mattresses and going, oh, this one's comfortable, or oh, this one's too squishy, or whatever. Like that was an actual thing that we did. But now, and when these DTC, this is another example of, a company trying to upend a traditional model. So much like, with the personal care products, like with the, razors and the toothbrushes, this is another situation where, very traditional model of going to a store and doing this. Well, now a mattress just shows up in a weird little box and you unbox it and it kind of explodes in your room, or hopefully not explodes, but expands in your room. And now you have a mattress that you can, that you can lay on. That was something that was very just different for people. They weren't sure what to do with that. And so having a really good return policy in that case, I think very much helped them. But having that social proof of, hey, I went through this experience, it was great. And, this is why I'm so excited about it. It's giving people it's giving them the space to make that decision by looking at what other people have said and done and going, oh, okay, cool. Other people have done it. Now I feel confident in doing it too.
That's a good point, Gabe. And I feel like in every podcast we've talked about how people can leverage that customer feedback, so on, so on. We talked a lot about that last week. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, definitely go back and give that a listen. But I think it just shows you how valuable that feedback from customers is. What's John Doe saying about these mattresses? What's, Jane Doe saying about Quip toothbrushes, whatever that situation may be. I think it just shows you how valuable that customer feedback is.
Totally. And in the broadband industry specifically, because normally people really don't like their broadband service provider. It's one of the lowest NPS industries that's out there. I think banks may be the only thing that's slightly lower. I mean, it's generally very low. So typically people aren't singing the praises of their broadband service provider. So if you can get people talking about that positive experience that they've had, I feel like it's even more powerful if you are a broadband service provider, just as an example, to, use that social proof, talk to your, have your customers talk up the service for you. So, I think there's a lot of things that BSPs could take from these direct to consumer brands, having really good and tight copy on the website, having that social proof, having some sort of splash screen that, talks about a particular service or feature, or maybe offers a small discount. I think there's so many different things that can be leveraged from a, digital marketing perspective there.
Absolutely. And Gabe, to go back just to one of the points we made at the beginning is, all of these companies we've signed up for, it's because someone has told us to. And I think that directly relates back to what you just said is, I didn't Google mattresses or Google toothbrushes and end up on Quip's website. It was 100% coming from someone else. So if you do have, a positive experience that you're sharing with your subscribers and they recognize that, it's going to be that same result. People are going to talk about it, and that's how people will spread. To that referral code point, that's like one of my favorite things to do is use my code to sign up for so-and-so. I really wish we had a code right now for this podcast, because I would definitely be like, hey, go sign up for anything we've talked about today with this code. But I think it's just a fantastic way to drive traffic to your business.
Yeah. And there's one other point I wanted to make on the landing page piece too. One other thing that I've seen a lot of these brands do, and I think is something that could be very replicable for broadband service providers, is don't be afraid to talk about your competition and compare yourself to your competition, especially if you have left that competition in the dust. If you're a fiber broadband service provider and you're competing against cable companies or satellite companies or DSL companies, there's no reason that you shouldn't call out those benefits. And you may not want to call out the competitor by name, call out their technology and actually put a comparison table on your website that says, these are the reasons that we're better. And I think these direct to consumer brands do a really good job of that because they're asking people to do something different than what they were doing before. I saw an example of a cookware brand that was competing against Teflon. And apparently Teflon is really not good for you. And some of the stuff can actually come off of the pan and get in the food that you're cooking, which I did not realize. But that's one of the things that they call out in this comparison table is, hey, if you're using Teflon pans, that crap's probably getting in your food, and that's really not good for you. So being able to call out your competition, really pretty directly, I think is something that could be more broadly used by a lot of different industries.
Absolutely, Gabe. I think that's a fantastic point. The comparison table is, another one of my favorite tools, referencing your customer or referencing your competition without actually referencing your competition. As you mentioned, if you've got that fiber network out, you're already at the top of the field, so you really need to present, why is my company better than, this company over here? And I think with a comparison table on your website, that's a fantastic way to do it.
So Zach, I wanted to shift gears just a little bit and I wanted to ask you about a company that I think a lot of us probably don't think of as a direct to consumer brand, just because of the size of purchase that you're making, but it's Tesla. Tesla really is a DTC brand. And I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on, car buying experience, especially being somebody who's, grown up in a world where you've always just had access to the internet to buy things and, actually having to pick up the phone or go somewhere to purchase something is, I think, pretty atypical for you.
It is. And it's not like an antisocial kind of thing. It's not like I'm trying to avoid people. If we're being honest, I'm trying to avoid people in some situations, but, I bought my very first car right out of college. It was in 2020 in the summertime. And the process it was like a several month process, not because like I was dragging out and didn't know what I wanted. I knew exactly what I wanted, but the problem I found was like, cool, like I have this Toyota vehicle I want. Who has it in stock? That was question number one. And the answer to that question was nobody. So the follow-up question was, well, what else can I get? And that is not a conversation I wanted to have. I didn't want to know what else I could get. I wanted to know when I could get what I wanted. So it took a few months. I ended up with this 2020 Toyota 4Runner, fantastic vehicle, highly recommend it. I'm just going to plug Toyota now, but the vehicle I really wanted, and coming out of college, I just couldn't convince myself to do it, was a Tesla Model Y. And when I'm looking at my shopping experience between Toyota and Tesla, I wouldn't even compare them. With Tesla, I can even to this day, I go onto their website. I pick the color of my Tesla. To begin, I guess I picked the model. I wanted the Model Y. I go in, I pick the color of the outside. I pick the color of the seats. And then I think there's a wheel option too. You get different wheels. That's it. Tesla has told me what they make. I know what I want. I can go in and I can customize that vehicle to be exactly what I want. With traditional auto manufacturers, not to just hate on, Toyota as a whole, I think everyone's guilty of this. They have all these different packages. The inventory scattered across the country. You don't know who has what. And then there's also that component to buying a car. It's like, oh, okay, this car is, $39,000. Well, I don't want to pay that. So let's, negotiate. And I can't stand that. I know what I want. I just want to write the check and be done with it. Side note, this was also the very first time I ever wrote a check in my life was buying a car. Back to Tesla's point, though, you pay online. You don't have to think about it,
Yeah, exactly. I think you can even pay in Bitcoin now, so it makes it even
easier. I want to think Dogecoin, is that still a thing? But
I don't know if that's still around.
And it's not just Tesla doing that is the nice thing. Rivian, another EV company, is doing this as well. You go on, you customize your vehicle. But I think where this gets interesting, Gabe, is how these two companies, Tesla and Rivian, really, I think Tesla was the one that actually got this started, was allowing people to customize their vehicle and buy it directly from Tesla. Because now I see these traditional automakers, I'm big into EVs. Another one I was looking at was the Mustang Mach-E. And with that, the process was the exact same. You go on, you customize your Mach-E, they essentially deliver it to the dealership, and the price you pay is already established. The dealership is not, exchanging money. Nothing happens there. And I think Tesla has really kind of shifted how people buy things, specifically in this case, automobiles. But it's one of my favorite things just because, like I said, I know what I want. Teslas tell me what they make. I can go on and I can customize that product and kind of tailor it to my needs. And this is something, Gabe, we see a lot in the broadband industry as well.
Yeah, for sure. And just to kind of finish off on that vehicle conversation, it's wild that somebody will purchase a $60,000 piece of equipment, piece of machinery, and potentially not even test drive it, right? I'm sure when, this model started, people thought Elon Musk was nuts because they're like, dude, nobody's going to give you 60, 90 grand for something that they're just ordering online and is going to show up at their house a few months later. That just seems completely bonkers. And I'm with you. The car buying experience is awful. Like my wife and I bought a new car a few years ago and it was the same crap, right? You get these weird packages and you're like, well, this has the sports package and it's got these 4 things that I kind of want, but it's got these 2 things that I don't really want. And why am I paying for these 2 things that I don't really want? Kind of reminds me of like the old cable model, where there would be like the, specific packages and but really you'd only want to watch like 11 channels, which is why the traditional cable model is basically falling apart. But I'm with you, man. I mean, this is totally going to change how, if I owned a dealer, I'd probably be freaking out right now because I wouldn't know how I'm going to make money long term. It used to be the dealerships made money on car sales. They don't really do that anymore. Now they make money on service. Well, what happens when my car doesn't need to be serviced like a traditional car needs to be? That's just going to completely upend that model. And, you're talking about traditional car manufacturers like Ford, selling direct basically to a customer. If they can sell it direct to a customer, why are they going to pay a dealership to, inventory, to, pay salespeople? I mean, it's just going to completely upend that model. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot less car dealerships in the next 10 to 20 years than there are right now. I just can't imagine how there's
and
not.
Gabe, Tesla, they make the cars, they sell them, but there's also another option too. And I saw one of these south of Salt Lake City. I believe it was in Draper, Utah. But have you ever heard of the company Carvana?
I have heard of this company, yes.
So it's basically this big glass vending machine, they call it. And you go online and you sell them your car. They cut you a check. You can trade into if you want, but they take your car and sell it. But it's the same concept. Whereas if I'm looking to buy a used car, I can go to their website, see their inventory, and buy and pay online. So I think specifically to this example, that dealership model, it's totally going away. And these direct-to-consumer models are really taking over. I'm here for it. I love the fact that I can go on and buy a Tesla online and have it delivered in 12 months now, but back in Tesla's prime, I could have it delivered in 3 weeks, and it just shows up at your house, or you can go pick it up. And it's funny because when I started looking at Teslas, I had never driven one. I had never I've seen them on the roads. I've never been inside one. I didn't know anything other than what I saw inside. And I think part of that too is when you have a product that nice, everyone's talking about Tesla. Everyone's talking about how great they are, how cool it is, When you have a product that nice, it sells itself. I believe Tesla has a very low marketing spend just because they know you and I are going to talk about it. And the cool thing, too, is this has since been discontinued to an extent, I guess. But for a while, Tesla had a referral program where you could go on and hey, Gabe, use my code and you would get, 1,000 free miles at supercharging stations, So there's that model again of people talking, people sharing their codes. And then I think for a while you could actually if you had enough codes, they'd give away actual tangible stuff signed. I think there was signed power walls by Elon Musk in there, just random stuff like that. If you get that many thousand people to buy a Tesla, but for you and I, the 3,000 miles for supercharging, that's just enough.
Yeah, hey, there's your recurring revenue business model again, right? And kind of a non-traditional model. I do want to ask you one question, just you being a fair amount younger than I am. Will you actively avoid doing business with a company if you have to either go to a physical location or have to pick up the phone and call them? I'm just curious to hear
I would say I don't want to explicitly say yes, I would avoid them, but will I seek alternatives? Absolutely. Um, I'm trying to think of like the last business I've actually avoided, but I feel like I'm in a place now where like most everyone's kind of tech savvy enough where they've all got like the latest tech. I can, book appointments online. I can buy their product online. Um, I will say though, hypothetically speaking, back to Tesla, if they had a lot down the street where I could like go buy a vehicle and haggle over price, or I had the option to go online and buy it, I'd still probably just go online and buy it. Um, so I wouldn't say I actively avoid, but I do seek, the competition. I'm seeing who's got the best product, and in the end, I'll most likely go with whoever's got the best product. If I have to compromise for that technology, I might. If I if I can do that whole digital experience, I will. So while I'm not actively going out and saying I'm not going to do business with you, I'm going to avoid you because I have to pick up the phone. I do my best to seek out the competition and see who's got the best experience for the customer.
Yeah, totally. No, the car buying experience. It's so interesting you say that. Of if I had the choice of going down to a dealership or just ordering it online, I'd still spend tens of thousands of dollars buying something online. And the car buying experience is awful. When my wife and I did buy this car, my son was, I don't know, probably 3 or 4. And we were buying a new car because we were having another kid and we needed a little bit more room and so on and so forth. So my son was with us when we were buying the car and trying to like corral a, whatever it was, 3 or 4, however old he was, 3 or 4-year-old through the hours long process of, well, we got to have you sign this. And, we got to have you fill out the credit stuff. I mean, we were there for hours and it's just such an awful experience that if I could have avoided that just by boom, 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 I would have probably gladly paid $1,000 more for the car just to avoid that terrible experience of having to go down and hang out for the entire day, and completely waste my time and annoy my child and my wife. So yeah, I'm all for simplicity, buddy.
I will say, when the time comes for me to trade my vehicle off, sell it, whatever that may be, I'm definitely looking at a DTC company. I have no intention of going down and driving around the Toyota lot, the GM lot, whatever lot I'm at. It's just a terrible experience.
Yeah, no, I hopefully I won't ever have to do it again. That is for sure. I know we covered a lot of ground today, but I just think that there's so many things that other businesses could look to these DTC companies, things that they're doing really well, specifically around their website, specifically around their business models and how to just make it easy to do business with them. Lack of choice, or limited choices, I think is a big one. Not having 15 different options for you to buy from a color perspective. It obviously makes it easier for them too, because then they're not having to, stock all these different things. There's just so many great things that I think other types of businesses could look at to, leverage these business models for sure.
Absolutely. And for those of us who joined us today, I just want to call out one last thing. This video podcast is on Spotify, and we will be uploading them to YouTube now as well. So if you'd like to stay tuned, stay connected with us, you can follow us there. As always, though, thanks for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into DTC brands and some of the strategies they are using and strategies that you should be using as well. Once again, don't forget to give us a follow on your favorite podcast app, and if you'd like, again, follow us on YouTube to catch the latest video podcast. In the next couple of weeks, we have a special guest lined up. So stay tuned, and you'll have to join us to find out who it is and what we'll be talking about. I don't think you'll want to miss this one. What do you think, Gabe?
Definitely not going to want to miss it. It's going to be great. I'm excited to have our first guest. We're every week it's something new, man. We got video, now we got the YouTube thing, now we're having guests. It's like we're rolling, baby. This is awesome. I love it.
Well, I thought about that this weekend. Is when we started this podcast, I made the joke of, hey, we're going to have tens of dozens of listeners to this podcast, and we've exceeded that goal, like it's episode 3 now or something, and we've
4.
I don't even know what episode it is, and we've exceeded that goal. So we have our tens of dozens and counting now.
Yeah, it's great. No, we're enjoying it, and hope everybody out there is enjoying it too, and learning something from Zach and my random conversations from time to time. So we love it.
All right. As always, everyone, feel free to connect with both Gabe and myself on LinkedIn or visit our website to send us a message. That's all for this week, but we'll talk soon.